Okay, for question one, the most striking aspect of this play was the lack of interaction of the characters on the stage. This ended up being a stylistic choice of the playwright, but it was kind of unsettling at first. Question two, the different perspectives. The first one was this code of silence, and this is represented by the male figures in this. In the text, it says, some say there's a code of silence after returning home. That's on page 32, I believe. And so like the father, Pop, will not talk to the son about his experiences in the same way the grandpa really only remembers his stories, or his playing of the flute during the war that he was in as well. It's just kind of like a difficult subject to talk about. Also, to contrast, a different perspective is hope, and this is represented by the wife, Guinea or Ginny. When she's planting her garden, she says each seed is a contract with the future, an expression of faith almost that something better will happen tomorrow, and that's because she's worried about her son at the war. She's kind of this rock or this glue for the family in the way that she kind of holds all the men together because she understands it's difficult for them to communicate, but that they all have these shared stories and experiences. Question three, reading with a pencil. Just mainly words I didn't know were the Hispanic words like Dos Mio, which means OMG, or Boricua, which is a Puerto Rican. And essentially just like having this made the text or the play like a lot more realistic, having these real Spanish words, but I had to look them up. Question four, the issue of diversity. Um, I think that there was really nothing gruesome or jarring about the war, which is like what a lot of plays about the war are. Like they talk about these horrific experiences, and this was kind of different. Like in the description of how Elliot received his injury, it was almost poetic. Quote, Guinea, it's not excruciating pain, Pop, it's a penetrating weakness, Grandpop, energy pours out of his leg. So this like this voice is almost like it's very fluid and there's a lot of imagery rather than like gore and horror. Question five, so a fugue I looked up is in terms of music, it's almost when you have this main melody, but then there's other interweaving parts that kind of make it more complex and dynamic. And Grandpa talks about Bach and how he used this in his music and how the grandpa tried to replicate that when he played the flute for his men. But also the play itself, I guess, is a fugue because there's this main story and this main plot that they all want to tell about the war, but it's told by them all at the same time, and they kind of interweave who's talking, and they're all talking at the same time, but not to each other, but to the audience. It kind of gives a unique perspective of war and the soldier, and that, though their experiences are very similar, it's kind of something that's really difficult to discuss, and it's why they don't talk to each other. Finally, question six. Oh, the two questions I had, I was wondering, one, do you think the stylistic choice of Fugue was justified by the playwright, or did it take away from the emotional relationship between the characters? And for the my second question, I think I was wondering if any of the characters you thought suffered from PTSD and how this is represented in the play.